Candy and Curses. Jyväskylä, 1954. Gray apartment blocks rose into the post-war Finnish cityscape, bare concrete not yet weathered, asphalt courtyards where a few stubborn plantings reached for light. Rationing was only just easing, and now and then you could see people smiling in the streets. Tuuli Nieminen, 9.5, sat on the new building's front steps and rolled her tongue between her teeth. Something felt strange there. An empty space that used to be full. Her baby tooth had clicked onto the porridge plate at breakfast, and now it lay in her pocket, carefully wrapped in a handkerchief. "What are you sulking about?" said Reiska, the yard boy a year older and therefore sure he knew everything. "Nothing," Tuuli said. She didn't want to explain. Reiska would only laugh. He always laughed. "Just you wait," he went on, superior. "Soon they'll all fall out. I've already lost 8, my big sister 12. Then you get new ones, ugly and huge." Tuuli didn't answer. She knew all that. Her mother had told her about losing baby teeth. And her first had just come out. But for some reason she felt Reiska shouldn't know. This was hers. "I'm going home," Tuuli said, getting up. "Coward," Reiska yelled after her as she strode through the glass front door. Home was quiet. Mother worked at the textile factory, father drove a bus. Their shifts wouldn't end until evening. Tuuli was a latchkey kid, like many in the building. Her key hung on a string around her neck, hidden under her blouse. She unlocked the door and stepped into the dusky two-room flat. In the kitchen a sandwich waited under a plastic dome. Beside it, a note: "Come straight home from school, I'll be back at 5 p.m. Heat the soup if you're hungry. Be good. Mother." She set her satchel in the hall and went to the kitchen. From her pocket she took the handkerchief-wrapped tooth and examined it closely. Small and white, a little yellow at the root. Losing it hadn't hurt, yet it was strange that a piece of her was now separate, lifeless in her palm. She had seen cartoons in an American movie magazine. There was a story about a tooth fairy who came at night and traded teeth for coins. She had asked Mother if they did that in Finland. "Of course not," Mother had laughed. "What nonsense they dream up. Keep it as a keepsake if you like." But Tuuli's best friend Marjo had said her cousin in Sweden put a tooth under the pillow and found money there in the morning. And Sweden was practically Finland. She turned the tooth between her fingers. Maybe she could try. It wouldn't hurt. That evening, when Mother and Father came home, Tuuli said nothing about the tooth. She answered that she had studied all day, though she had really read a book and listened to the radio. She ate meat soup and mashed potatoes, and Mother was too tired to notice one tooth was missing. At bedtime Tuuli took the tooth out again and looked at it. Then she slid it under her pillow, right where her head would lie. If the tooth fairy really existed, maybe she would come tonight. Maybe. She woke in the middle of the night. Something was glittering in the dark room. At first she thought it was the street lamp refracting in the window glass, but then she saw it more clearly, a small greenish glow near her pillow. She didn't dare move. She blinked, trying to see. The room felt colder than usual, and there was a strange scent in the air, like the forest after rain. Then she saw it. A tiny figure, hardly the size of Tuuli's thumb, stood on the pillow. It shone with a green light that illuminated only a small circle around it. Tuuli stared, holding her breath. A fairy that she knew at once. Translucent wings beat so fast they looked like mist. Its body was slender and green, its hair was long and white as an old person's. The fairy bent and lifted something, Tuuli's tooth. She could just see how it rolled the tooth between its hands, examined it like a doctor, then nodded in satisfaction. It slipped the tooth into a little pouch from its belt. Then it drew something from another pouch and set it on the pillow, something small and shiny. Not a coin, as Tuuli had expected. A candy. A tiny, glittering candy. Just as Tuuli was about to move her hand and touch it, the fairy turned. Its eyes were large and black as oil slicks, and they seemed to look straight at her. Tuuli froze. She was sure the fairy would know she was awake. But miraculously it noticed nothing. It only nodded once more, satisfied with its work, and then, like a spark, flickered out through the window into the night. Tuuli dared to touch the candy. It was cold and smooth, like ice. But it didn't melt in her warm hand. No one would believe her if she showed it. Mother and father would say it was an ordinary sweet. Rayska would howl with laughter. Even Marjo might doubt. The fairy's scent still hung in the air. Forest after rain, only sweeter. Tuuli sniffed the candy. The same. Mother had always forbidden eating anything suspicious. If you don't know what it is, don't eat it. But this was a tooth fairy's candy. It had to be safe. Tooth fairies were children's friends. Tuuli put it in her mouth. It tasted wonderful, sweet and tart at once, like berries and honey. It melted on her tongue, and her whole mouth filled with that forest sweet flavor. Content, Tuuli fell asleep again. In the days that followed, she noticed changes. First, her eyes, once brown, began to look greener, as if moss had seeped into them. Mother asked if she had been crying. Tuuli shook her head. Then small green flecks appeared under the skin of her hands, like the mottled patches when she once fell into nettles and her skin reddened and broke out. But these didn't itch, and she hadn't fallen. Odd rash, Mother said, rubbing on zinc ointment. It didn't help. At school, Tuuli tired more easily. She felt heavy indoors, light outdoors. As if something had shifted inside her. Rayska noticed her eyes and inspected them at recess. Your eyes are weird, he said. They look green. That's not true, Tuuli said, though she had seen it in the mirror. Marjo spotted the green speckles on her arms, but Tuuli denied everything. A couple of weeks later, just when she had convinced herself it was all in her imagination, she found something strange on her back. 2 small bumps between her shoulder blades. Not visible, but she could feel them with her fingers. Like 2 tiny knobs growing in the flesh. Mother, Tuuli asked at dinner, can a person grow wings? Mother dropped her fork onto the plate. What are you talking about, Tuuli? Of course not. Who's filling your head with nonsense? No one, Tuuli said quickly. I just read it in a book. Then don't ask such blasphemies, Mother said, and kept eating. Her 10th birthday was modest, like all celebrations then. Ham sandwiches, lemonade, a small chocolate cake Mother made with margarine and the only cocoa she could find. Marjo came, and 3 classmates. By then Tuuli had hidden her changes for nearly half a year. The bumps had grown. Her eyes were clearly more green than brown. Fine green dotted patterns covered her skin, like a fern's frond seen up close. She wore long sleeves and dabbed powder on her lids. At the party she felt more out of place than ever. The other children talked about school, toys, comics. Her head was full of forest sounds and strange dreams of flying. When the guests had gone, she sat in her room and looked into the mirror. Her hair, once dark brown, had taken on a silvery sheen. Not enough for Mother to notice, but enough for her to see. I'm becoming a fairy, she whispered to her reflection. The room felt cooler than the rest of the flat. The window stood open, a light summer breeze lifted the curtains. Finnish summer night was pale blue, never truly dark. Out of that blue she saw a green light, the same green she had seen half a year before. The fairy drifted in through the open window. The same as last time, thumb-sized, glowing. Tuuli, it said, its voice like a breath of wind through leaves. I see you ate the gift. What's happening to me? Tuuli whispered, afraid Mother would hear and come. You are changing, the fairy said, settling on the mirror's edge. You ate a fairy's candy. It is a gift and a curse. One of us must always walk among humans, gathering the teeth that fall, because they store power. The power of wisdom. Now it is your turn to carry that burden, as I have carried it 40 years. I don't want to be a fairy, Tuuli whispered. No one wants to, the fairy said. But we are given no choice. Every fairy was once human. Each of us once ate a candy we should not have. Tears rose in Tuuli's eyes. Is there no way to stop this? The fairy shook its head. No. But your work is not eternal. When you find someone who agrees to take the candy, you will be free. As I am now. Then the fairy vanished, like a spark dying. Only the faint scent of forest remained. Years passed. Tuuli grew, but not like other children. After 10, she stopped getting taller. Her hair turned fully silver. Her eyes were moss. The bumps on her back grew into small, translucent, delicate wings. At 12, she told her parents the truth. She showed them her wings, now big enough for short night flights. She told them about the fairy, the candy, the curse. Good God, her father shouted. This is like that business with the girl who went missing in Radhavara. You need a doctor. You're seeing things, dear, mother said. Seeing wings isn't normal. They both refused to look when Tuuli tried to show them. They saw only what they wanted, a slight, quiet girl with unusual eyes. In time they stopped speaking of it. Tuuli was odd, true, but also kind and gentle. She went to school, poorly. It was hard to focus on the human world when the call of the forest and the voice of water spoke more clearly than the teacher's drone. By 15 she was a fairy through and through. She could fly long distances, commune with animals, feel plants' pain. She had also begun to collect teeth, as was her duty. At night she flew into rooms where children slept with teeth under pillows and traded them for candies. And those candies she left, into each she pressed a particle of fairy dust, a bit of magic. Some children ate them, most did not. But Tuuli had to wait. She waited for the one. The one who would eat the candy and take the curse. The one who would set her free. In 1982, Tuuli, still 15 to the eye but in truth 37, flew to a suburb of Jyväskylä and slid a candy under the pillow of Maya, an 8-year-old who had just lost her first tooth. Tuuli hid behind the curtain and waited. The child woke, saw the candy, took it in her hand. Please, Tuuli whispered so softly the child could not hear. Please eat it. Free me. The girl examined the candy, sniffed it, and then, as if she had heard, put it in her mouth. Tuuli waited. She waited for the feeling to change, for the weight to lift from her back, for her skin to return to normal. Nothing. Her wings did not fade. The green flecks did not pale. Her hair stayed silver. No, she breathed, despairing. Maya slept peacefully, nothing in her seemed altered. The candy was gone, but it had no effect on the girl or on Tuuli. It doesn't work, Tuuli said, understanding the hard truth at last. It was a lie. She returned to the old flat where her young cousin now lived, her parents long since dead. She sat before the mirror and studied the still fairy face. Once a fairy, always a fairy, she whispered to the glass. Her cousin, who had seen her changes as a child and now believed in fairies, sat beside her. What happened? Didn't it work? No, Tuuli said quietly. The old fairy lied to me. There is no way out. I am a fairy forever. But, maybe it isn't a curse, her cousin offered. Maybe it's a gift? You can fly. You can speak with nature. Maybe it isn't so terrible. Tuuli looked at her, now an adult with a life and a future, all the things denied to Tuuli. A fairy's life is lonely, Tuuli said. We do not belong among people. Nor among fairies either, because we are only humans who were changed. We are the ones in between. Yet deep inside she began to understand something. Perhaps her cousin was right. Perhaps she could accept this part of herself, even if it had come through deceit. That night, after so many years, Tuuli flew far over lakes, northward, toward Lapland's forests where there were more fairies and fewer people. There she found others like herself, former children who had eaten the candy and changed. Ageless beings whose wings glittered in the moonlight. We have a purpose, said an old fairy whose hair was like snow. We protect the forests. We keep balance between humans and nature. We remember what people forget. And somewhere in the heart of that northern forest, Tuuli found peace. She was a fairy, forever and always. But it was not a curse, it was a calling. Still, in the deep blue of Finnish summer nights, a fairy flies whose eyes are like moss and hair like silver, carrying small glittering sweets to leave under pillows. There is no longer any magic in them, only sweetness, joy, and the promise of a tooth fairy who is beautiful, not frightening. Because Tuuli knows the truth now. Once a fairy, always a fairy. But every fairy is free to decide what kind of fairy to be.